All right, so this is our first session, and as we get into it, I was sharing the model that helps me. It's the basis for everything too, Ariel, is purpose, why does it matter? And then outcomes, what are the results that I want that would reflect my purpose? It's very important that the outcomes have to be an outgrowth of your why. And then last but not least will be the methods. Methods for what? For producing those outcomes. And and it really is that sequence because if you do methods first, my short answer is methods cost resources. That's outcomes don't cost and purpose don't cost. Methods cost you resources. So how do you know how to spend them if you don't know the outcomes toward which you're spending them? I'll repeat all this. It's a system I use over and over. But when we talked about purpose, I said, well, it's two parts. A purpose is first, what is our focus? Because there's many things we could focus on. And then why does it matter? That's the second half. And so what you said about why it matters is you said really for the individualization, we don't have standards. Part of our program is we help them figure out who they are and what they're good at and point them in the right direction. Each person is unique. There could be 50 different paths, one for each student. The students who have come into our program have missed a large portion of life and who they are. And in order to really create a career, you have to have a foundation of identity. But once you have that, then we can build on that. So yeah, anything you want to add to that? Those were your words, not mine. I was just
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I would like when I say we don't have standards, I just mean there isn't like a one size fits all. We have standards for excellence and performance and things like that. But as far as like step one, two, three that we can use across the board for everyone is just doesn't fit with our model. So,
Love it.
but I think that says it.
Yeah. Do you have any of the standard? Is the standards of excellence written down anywhere, or is it?
Not really.
Sure. It'd be
Yeah.
really cool, like just to even like bring that to life more too. As like a to do item.
Yeah.
Um, and and so here's what I have as like the purpose is the individualization of it and really helping them build a foundation of identity. So the next piece would be then what are the outcomes? What would be the when I think of outcomes, I think of like what would growth look like? If it would write on there for me. I don't know why it's not writing. Okay, so growth would be one way to think of it. Success, um, flourishing. What would flourishing look like? And I like to think of progress. What would progress look like? Or I even say meaningful progress.
Mm.
And all of these are other ways to say the word thriving. If you look up in the dictionary, vigorous growth is one of the first things it says about thriving,
Oh.
success, and then these others get meaningful progress is sort of one that I add in there because it helps me think of like it's very useful. It's like it's the phrase that fits all situations. What would meaningful progress look like for you and I today? What would meaningful progress look like when I work on that next thing, or whatever? So thriving to me is such a key concept in what we do. It's the beacon. It's what I'm going for. It's my version of happiness. A lot of people want happiness and I used to want that too, but I realized that I want thriving instead. That happiness isn't something I have a lot of say over. It's
Mhm.
random. It's haphazard or it's happenstance, happy, haphazard. So it means randomly things line up with what I'd want. Thriving is more like it comes from the Norse word, the Vikings, or seizing or grasping. And they meant that. They didn't take those words lightly. This was how you lived and died in society. I mean, this was like, you know, this was their philosophy of life. And so I think we don't have to be so Viking about it, but thriving is really what I'm after. And for me, StrengthsFinder is a method for thriving. It really fits with what you were talking about down here. That vision really is a vision for thriving. What you're saying, you're trying to help the students build a pathway for thriving in their life. Would that be accurate, or would that be putting too many words in your mouth?
No, I think that's correct.
Cool.
Don't mind me. My dog is like 3 pounds and she's barking at the back door. So we're just going to go on a little field trip.
Okay, go for it. If you want to pause real quick, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Let's
Yeah,
just do
let's
that.
pause. We'll do that.
Okay.
On the pause button. Go for it now. Just all right. So jumping back in, the reason I do this model, Ariel, is because it helps me align with myself if it's just me working on a project, going through the purpose, the outcomes, and then the methods, or and especially when it comes to other people. I don't teach them the model normally, like, okay, let's have a, but I'll want to go like, why are you wanting to do this? All right. Like, and then I'll see if it fits with my why. And I'll be like, well, what would it look like? What do you want? What would make you satisfied when we were done? What would be your conditions for however you want to say it, And then, all right, well, how should we go about it? Because every time I've ever had discord with people, it's usually about one of those three things or more, maybe two or three of those things. But it's usually that, like, either we just had a different purpose, like your why and my why were different, but we never talk about that. And I get why, because why lives in the background. We don't think to bring why to the foreground. Like, why are you wearing that sweatshirt? There's a
Right.
reason why. There absolutely is a reason. Or why did I eat that meal I ate yesterday? Um, I don't think about why, but there's a reason why. Not just to eat. It's maybe I wanted, something light, or maybe I wanted something, like there's different whys within there. So, or maybe you choose an item for comfort when you want to wear, or because you have to do it because you wear an item because the purpose is it fits with the norms of that culture or whatever. Like you have to wear a uniform or something like that. So there's a purpose in everything we do. We just don't ever think about it. Like in relationships, if you think about it, like I think about all the times I would get into whether it's a business relationship or like a dating relationship or whatever. You never really think about or talk about why, and then it just lives in the background. Same with outcomes, because we never go, well, what would success look like? What are your expectations? We don't even we always have expectations, but we don't really get them out there. Like your learning style might have certain expectations of the teacher, and if the teacher doesn't deliver, then it's a mismatch. It creates what I would say call contrast. But whatever the word is, it's negative emotions or it's a negative experience. So aligning on these three things just keeps everything clean along the way. And whenever there's discord, it's because, ooh, I forgot to align, or we missed it, or we didn't surface it or talk about it. What do you think of that? Because it's a
I think
pretty,
that's completely accurate.
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've just put it into a model. It's a stupid simple model, POM. But all of my stuff is like that. It's kind of not stupid. It's basic. I call it Bibno. Everything I do is basic, but not obvious. Bibno. It's like POM, purpose outcome method, as like the framework of anything human can do. Um, that's basic. It's just not obvious. So that's what I'm looking for in my tools and models, which we'll get into a lot. And so, in relation to your purpose for why are we talking about this class, it's for the individualization. And kind of ironically, while you were on break, I realized I didn't write that the focus was the T2S certification we're doing, the talent to strength, which include, it's basically Strengths Finder, what most people would call Strengths Finder. And you will get everything that people who go through the Strengths Finder certification get, in my opinion, and you'll get more. You're going to get some tools like the visuals we have. They are not available anywhere else, that kind of help people learn about the Strengths Finder. And there's just a lot of concepts and models that when you apply Strengths Finder inside of them, like POM. You realize that StrengthsFinder is all of the 34 themes are methods. When we look at your top five, Ariel, they're all, your number one is input. Your number two, I think, is individualization. I'll pull them up. Um, those are your methods. That's how you navigate the world. I'll put your themes up here so we can see them. Um, this is how this is to me what the world looks like inside your brain, you know? And I can relate to it kind of heavily because I have these three are all in my top five. As I've mentioned, I can't draw on this one. Um, and then this is my number 7 or 8. And this one's nowhere in sight for me, but like I know internally for you, you're like we talked about before we hit record, you measure things in terms of how useful they are. That's like what determines whether or not you remember something or take action on it. And you use this word individualization right away to describe what you're after with your program and what you want to provide to your students. You want to provide useful individualization that they can activate or take action on, that they can put into motion, not just sit on, but not just put into motion. This is kind of cool. Just when I see both of these themes in someone's top five, I don't know if I've said this to you before, but activator is like making sure things launch and begin. Achiever is about making sure things are finished or accomplished. So you kind of have both. I
That's
call it
good.
soup to nuts, because like a meal. I don't know where I think that expression comes from, like a multi-course meal, and you go from soup to nuts, the beginning to the end. Activator is the soup; it launches things off, and the achiever is the thing at the end that makes sure we can cross it off the list. And then there needs to be a novelty, an originality to what you do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll say too, like whenever I've met people that have activator and the ideation,
Yeah.
they don't have the achievement piece, and it drives me bananas.
Because
We're
why?
just starting a bunch of stuff,
Right.
and it's like, and yeah, these are all great ideas, but we need to do the things, or we're just wasting time, kind of deal.
Love it. And I love how you use that right there to distinguish because yeah, you've recognized this pattern because I have it too, but you're like, but without this, I need the payoff. And I think this doubles it down too. You see the connection between these two where it's useful achievements. It's not getting things done for the sake of doing. You don't like busybodies, right? You're not looking to just nervously cross things off a to-do list.
Right. My husband is
Ah.
likes to do things, like he needs things to do, and I'm not that way. I can totally chill
Has
like
he
at my house.
has he taken this?
No.
This would be a really great exercise because I'm assuming one of the outcomes is you'll be able to teach this.
Mhm.
Is that right? Is that let me not
That'd be
assume?
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's my thought. So yeah, dog, chill. I'm just kidding.
They're wrestling, and it's just like right here at my feet. I'm like,
Yeah,
anyways,
they can't just do whatever they want whenever they want. I'm kidding.
yeah.
Um, so where were we though? We were talking about achiever, getting things done. Oh yeah, you facilitating this. Were you wanting to do that? That's kind of what I'd imagine you'd be able to do with this. You'd be able to talk about this with your students. You'd have them take the Strengths Finder. Maybe at some point, early in the program, you give them an orientation to it, and then throughout the time, you can build tools in. And I'll show you a lot. I've developed like different worksheets and stuff, and I have a process that I'll teach as well. And the acronym I might have shared with you already is COIN.
Okay.
COIN. This,
Yeah.
I may as well just jump right to it, I guess, because that's the core of what we'll be teaching. I call it the spine. I don't. I actually think of it that way. I don't usually talk about it that way because it might gross people out. But I think of it as like this for StrengthsFinder at least is the core column, of what we're looking for. We want people to first connect with their themes. Oops. Yeah, we want people to first connect with their themes because people will take the Strengths Finder and read it, but then they won't really do anything with it. They'll just, okay, that's interesting. And that's with a lot of assessments. We don't
Right.
really connect with it. We kind of glance at it, and that's not the same as connecting. Now, sometimes people will really get into it. Like if you ever met somebody who's really into Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram,
Mhm.
and they're like, "What's your type?" And like me and the people like me with StrengthsFinder were like, "Oh, I'm more chill now." But when I first got into it, I was like, "What's your type?" And like, it was annoying. But I was like, it was so fun because it's like reading into people. It's a code. It's
Yeah.
kind of cool. But most people never get to that. They never connect. They more like glance
Hmm.
or
Well, and do you wonder if that's like a personality thing for us, or is it something that can be learned by them? Like maybe some people don't value knowing as analyzing others or themselves. Is that a learned thing or a personality thing?
that's it's probably both. But that raises such a great point because regardless, I view it as my responsibility, and I'm not saying you have to view it this way, but I view it as my responsibility to make the case for why they should care about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I don't always succeed, and like sometimes when I try to talk about this stuff, I get tongue tied, and I sound like I don't come off the way I want to. It just it's hard to talk about this stuff, but I view it as like that's what part of my purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I talk about this, I'm trying to maybe give you the ammo to also do that, to also build the case for why people should get excited about this, why they should keep an open mind, and for me and you, it really is that thing that we share. It's the input. It's got to be useful, man. Like just it's gotta help me in life in order for me to care.
Well, and I want to know. I've always been a I want to know kind of person. Even
Mhm.
as a kid, like I just want to know, I want to know why. I want to know what people are thinking. I want to know why things are happening this way. And I just like it. It feels good. It feels like it feeds my energy that I can't control.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's like the why, what the inner workings. I mean, like your individualization certainly hints at that. It's like, how do you operate? Because like that's what I want to know. I want to know. I even came up with a word. Not like nobody's ever used it. I'm sure, but I've never heard anybody use it. I'm like, what is your soulscape? Like a
Mhm.
landscape, but it's an inner thing.
Yeah.
There's a book that I love, mainly for the title, and it's called Pristine Inner Experience. It's that idea of inner experience. It's just yeah, it's a cool phrase because
Yeah.
that's what each person has. And in the introduction, the author describes what he's trying to get at. He's saying, and you could picture this. He's describing a couple driving, in the mountainside in a car, driving along, and the wife says to the husband, in this case, "What are you thinking?" And then the the husband's like, "Okay, well, there's a couple of challenges. The first one is, what am I thinking?" Because we don't even realize we're having our own inner experience,
Mhm.
but because that's essentially what our life is. When you say like, "How's your life?" or "What's going on? Have you lived a good life? Are you loving life?" I think what we're saying is, "How's your inner experience?"
Mhm.
That's at least the way I unfold that term and make meaning out of it. I'm like, yeah, this is everybody has their inner experience. So the first question is, what is my inner experience? The
Mhm.
second challenge then for the husband or for all of us is, how would I articulate my inner experience? I mean, like, in this case, when the wife says, what are you thinking? And the husband's like, okay, what am I thinking? And then it's like, all right, now, how do I encode that? How do I,
Yes.
right? How do I,
That's probably my least um, developed skill is communicating thoughts or feelings. And not because I'm a bad communicator, but because I might go too far with my explanation when the person isn't, there's foundational levels of like truth
Yeah.
or depth in the way that we can talk to each other or even perceive something. Like here's the here's a shallow level, and then there's a behind that, and there's a behind that. Well, I start sometimes behind the things instead of starting in the front and working my way to that. And so sometimes people are like, huh? Because I have gone too far or too deep too quickly. And so that's something I've learned about myself is I need to start more shallow depending on who I'm talking to with what I'm talking about.
That's so cool. So what's really funny is, you're at OSU, and the reason I'm even in Oklahoma is because I went to OSU. I might have mentioned that.
Oh, nice. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
I
Okay.
yeah, I grew up in Chicago area, and I was kind of looking for what I wanted. I just graduated college, and not even, I hadn't yet graduated, but I had met two gentlemen from OSU. I don't know if you know either of them. Kent Sampson, do you know that name in
No,
residential life? Kent Sampson, or he's not been at OSU in a long time, but Amjad Ayubi. Do you know?
I don't know who that is, but that name sounds familiar.
If you ever go to any of the OSU football games, almost all the chants, he's the one who invented them,
Oh, cool.
and he's the one who started the campaign called Hire OSU Grads. And at
Okay.
the time he started that, it was novel. Nobody was doing that. Amjad's like a super inventive, creative guy. Anyway, those two had recruited me to come to Oklahoma State as a hall director. And so
Mm.
I came to Oklahoma State. I was a hall director in Bennett Hall when it was the athletic hall, and then it was a little bit of a spillover dormitory. And then begins with an S, little hall. I don't even know why I'm drawing a blank on the name because it's kind of, I can't remember the name of the hall, but it was, yeah. Anyway, and then what I studied was interpersonal communication. There
Mm.
used to be a degree program there. It's not there anymore. It was called Organizational Communication Consultancy. And
Mm.
that's what my
That's
master's degree
cool.
is in. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
cool, right? So it
cool.
got me, it's what launched my career because I was always interested in like organizational dynamics, but
Mhm.
also individual inner working dynamics. And then what happens inside of organizations, or not even organizations, just social groups, like what accounts for popularity, or why are people in friend groups and not in others. I was just always interested in that, and a lot of it has to do with our primate communication, the human version of our communication. And so this is actually a model that's used a lot to explain it. I mean, there's a source, and then you're trying to encode your message. Now, your message that you're encoding, an Ariel message, is not going to be the same as like anybody else's message. One reason is your themes, your top five. The chance of someone else having the same top five as you is really rare. One in 278,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
that could mean like I'm trying to explain something, but because I'm driven by like ideation, and it could be like this great idea where that's not in my husband's at all, like at all. The idea thing is not his, so he doesn't receive that the way that I give it. So, anyways, I can see how that plays
right?
together. Hmm.
No, I mean I know that experience because like you might have intellection high or something else that adds depth to your thoughts that other people are like, huh, what? Why should I even care about that? Like, so I'm trying to pull up a video here that I came across recently, and I wanna it really made a statement about this. It's only what I'm going to show you is really just maybe about 30, maybe about a minute or 2 minutes tops. And I'm vamping as I pull it up too, by the way, because all right, I got it here. So I'm going to share my screen. I think you're going to like this because I saw this maybe about a little over a week ago, and it satisfied a longing that I always had kind of around what we're talking about. And so if it could do the same for you, I'm going to be real happy. So yeah, I know, right? Let's just try this out. Let's just see what happens. So it's about this psychotherapist named Francois Lacan. But I want to I just want to jump to kind of the one of the first ways, or one of the first ideas in here, just to show a little bit. So I'm going to pick it up here, and then I'll stop in about a minute or two. Give me just
Okay.
a second. All right.
Of the seminars he gave. He liked to present his ideas in highly complex ways and often deployed mathematical equations and diagrams. He didn't write very clearly, but beneath the complex surface, Lacan made some extremely useful additions to our understanding of ourselves. Lacan was deeply interested in an event that occurs in the life of every child, the first time that they recognize themselves in a mirror. They have the hugely distinctive and strange experience, which no dog or chicken has ever had, of looking at their own reflection and thinking, that is me? Crucially, the moment, which Lacan called the mirror phase, can feel very unsettling because the face in the mirror doesn't necessarily look as we feel. Inside, we are a formless, continuous stream of consciousness made up of speeding thoughts, desires, and images. We are polysexual, chaotic, ever-changing, and ambivalent to the core. But on the outside, we seem like a more or less stable entity with composed and symmetrical features that betray almost nothing of what's going on within. We have only words to try to transcend the gap, and most of the time they fail to do justice to our real intentions. Not knowing how to say what we feel isn't a personal failing, it's an existential truth. The image in the mirror is by necessity far more one-dimensional than the entity that beholds it. This leads to a problem that follows us throughout life. As adults, we long for others to understand us in the deepest ways. But Lacan is preparing us to face the darker possibility that in fact other people will be resolutely stuck on the outside of us, assuming us to be pretty much as we seem, but heavily caricaturing us without meaning to. We're understandably reluctant to accept this loneliness and are consequently very concerned to control the external appearances that we present. That's what the fashion industry trades on. We hope that if we could tinker sufficiently with what other people see externally of us, perhaps our hair or the design of our collar, we may eventually be properly understood. But Lacan suggests a more difficult, mature move, that we accept that other people simply won't ever experience us the way we experience ourselves, that we will be almost entirely misunderstood, and will in turn almost entirely misunderstand. Lacan was famous for his extremely negative statements about.
We'll stop there. Did you see that? Did my screen share with you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Will you
cool.
send that to me?
Yeah, let me do it now, because
Love
that's how
it.
the activator works. Tell me if this is true. The activator works by like strike while the iron's hot.
Yes. I want it right now.
Yep.
Well, and it was like, I love that because I feel that. And it reminds me of like, so my sister lies about everything. She's always lied about everything. From the time we were little kids, she lies about the most ridiculous things, like what she does for her job, how much money she makes. I mean, she lies. I mean, she doesn't do it as much anymore, I don't think, but I also don't hang out with her as much. But me and my mom talk about it sometimes, and I just decided that I think the reason that she does that is because she is who you think she is when she's talking to you.
She becomes who she thinks you think.
Mhm. All right,
Like a
right.
social chameleon, like that.
Well, and no, not that. And like in the opposite way, like if she meets someone for the first time and tells them that she's a ballerina, that person thinks she's a ballerina. And so now they're going to see her that way, and they're going to treat her that way, and they're going to talk to her that way because they think these things are true. And so she can become that when she's with that person because that's what they know about her. And so it's a way, it's like to change the way that she feels about herself by manipulating what you believe is true about her.
Right.
But anyways, it's that same kind of like identity and, form versus formless and things like that. But
Ooh,
yeah.
that gets deep too. Form versus, yeah. All right. So this is one of the reasons I really like StrengthsFinder is it helps it. I find it to be a useful way to sort out who I am. It's basically what it is it's a menu of 34 qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll tell you how I really think of it. I don't use this metaphor often, but I think of it like a musculature. Like if you've ever seen like like you go to a
Yeah.
chiropractor.
Anatomy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's an anatomy that we all have. Like you have the same, skeletal muscle pieces, skeleton pieces that any other human would have. It's in the blueprint. And I think socially that these 34 qualities, they're, while not exhaustive, like I could count bones and muscles with enough cadavers over time. But like here, we're sloshing around the human qualities, and okay, now I'll set up 4 groups, or I'm going to do these 7. Well, this is 34, and I find it to be way more precise. 34 little descriptors that once identified, I can now see what your priorities are. Because you have all those muscles, but some, because of the way you've lived your life, are really well developed. Like some of those muscles have been from lifting heavy loads, and so they're big. Or some of those muscles have been developed through really delicate, circumstances you've had to maneuver, and so they're very refined, just like muscles can be. And then some you never really used at all, so they're kind of weak. Mm-hmm. And I think of these 34 themes that way. Like your number one input is kind of like the muscle you flex the most as you go through life, as things come into your realm of experience, which is one of the ways that these 34 themes should be defined. Like a way to think of them is your native response, your natural reaction, just unmade up. It's your unrehearsed reaction to the stimuli you experience in life, day to day, moment to moment.
You said you went to OSU. Do you know Dar Yasseri?
No, I don't know Dar.
Okay, so he worked there for a while, and you would love him. The way that you think. Well, you would either love him or hate him. Let me be clear.
Depends on how I feel about myself.
Maybe. And his delivery is different than yours. And I think it's because his job is different than yours, but he's very passionate person, and very uses the F word no matter who's around, which I love, but I also ask money from people. So I you know what I mean? There's sometimes, I'm the same way, but like in certain situations. And so we're kindred, but there's so many things that you've said, like the muscular, like that kind of imagery, and then the soup to nuts, like there's so many things that you've said that, and he loves he loves ideas and creation, and he helped build hotel brands. And so it's all about customer strategy and things like that. Like maybe you just meet, I just think that you would like to meet him as far as like learning, but also like getting excited about something. I think you guys could be
like twins, Adam and Dar.
Yeah, but it like iron sharp, like it pushes you, and it's like it makes you have ideas, and then it's just, I don't know. So you would love or hate him, but
right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And Amjad is that way too, an ideas person and all of that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So, but this idea of these 34 qualities, I described it now as a musculature. I described it as a taxonomy, which would be like a list of 34 qualities that don't exclude each other, like they don't overlap. So anyway, but that's one of the reasons it can dial in, because out of 34, your top 5 would be really kind of unique, a unique assemblage that, statistically speaking, 1 in 278,000 would only share with you, just in terms of that. But what we were talking about was communication and the complication of it, and so we have a lot of threads opening up already, which is fun for me. But trying to keep it on track, you were describing communication, and so as you encode, you have to account for your themes, and those describe your priorities. Like they're not only the filters for what you take in from your environment, but they are also what you want to put out into the environment. They're your priorities for what you want out into the world.
I think it's interesting that themes are different than values, because I think that we would think that they're the same, but who we are is different than what we want to be or what we want, like it's interesting to me just that the way those play together.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say that the themes, there is a lot of overlap in there.
Mhm.
This was just me that I put this model together because I was just trying to capture, like, inside the Ariel half of the communication, there's all that stuff going on. And then on the Adam half of the situation, there's all that stuff going on. Or whatever the other person is, you know?
Mhm.
And, you know, because I'll have my themes, and let's say mine were totally different from yours. You know, that might affect how I hear your message. Or let's say I had the identical themes as yours, but I don't come from the same experience set you have, you know? We're just different people. We grew up in different households. We've grown up in different cultures, probably different generations, you know? And even if those were identical, which there's no way they would be, how about where we're going? Where we come from is our experiences. Where we're going is our goals
Mhm.
or outcomes, I'd call them too. You know, so like these are just some of them. I mean, we can add all kinds of other things in here that would like make us different. And that's that and yet that's what we got to do. You got to send your message, then I have to decode it. How? Well, ideally as you meant it. But what I'm really going to do is the way I'm going to decode your message, unless I'm unique, is I'm going to say, well, what would I have meant if I said what she said the way she said it? I would have meant this. This is what that would have. This is what I would have wanted. This is what that. And you know, the odds of that overlapping aren't too great. So I wanted to just share that about the communication side of it. And but bringing it all the way back to POMing our conversation, which I don't know what happened to that slide now. Oh, I know. Yeah, it's like, what outcomes would you like to have from these great conversations I anticipate us having? And I'm going to put in here one of them being that I, meaning you, can facilitate this, like to whatever degree you wanted. Meaning, you not at all, or you might like want to start, teaching this around the OSU and or around Stillwater or whatever.
Or just even like for my students when they start a cohort with us.
Yep.
I think it's so personal, this kind of thing. It can be, and I believe in it enough to where there are some things that like us as leaders do, and there's a lot of things that we outsource, and this is something that I would want to do to, as a leader, still connect on a personal level with my student, and I believe in it. So I would actually want to do it.
Yeah.
And then I think even outcomes, I think that I would like to know what you know. That's important. Like, what have you learned about things or life or whatever that you can teach me that would be helpful? So even beyond just StrengthsFinder, I want to know.
Oh, cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I appreciate that because for me, I could talk about StrengthsFinder kind of in its own little bubble.
Mhm.
But what I really love about StrengthsFinder is how it fits into the bigger picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. And we could do both, and you can kind of direct me toward what you want if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
I would love for you to just. I don't have a particular agenda. I'm going to align with what you want, basically. If you say something I can't get on board with, I'll let you know, but I highly doubt that would happen. So,
Okay.
right? So, yeah, what else? What other outcomes sound good to facilitate this to whatever degree you want it, to pick up on useful things that I've learned along the way that you can learn faster? Like I said, I learned at 52 about this idea Lacan presented. You now know it at whatever,
Right.
ahead
Yeah.
of, I love that,
I like to learn, and I love like being able, because there are things that it took me a really long time to learn, and then there's things that I can stand on the shoulders of someone else because they've spent time learning it. And so Yes, I want to know what you know. And then even like developing or coaching people, that's its own animal too. And Strengths Finder can be used as a tool, but anything else that would be helpful for that um is what I want with like an outcome to learn.
That's amazing. I've been in the coaching kind of arena since the last century. I can honestly say in 1998, I started getting into this idea that was new at the time called life coaching. And I
Yeah, it's new at the time. It's like
yeah,
everywhere now.
it was brand new. And the guy who pretty much invented the field, if you look at who's really credited for it, his name was Thomas Leonard. He was only a few years older than me, but he died like in his early 40s. So like
Oh,
yeah. He was an ideas guy. He was a financial planner. And what he realized is a lot of his clients, when they were coming to him for money advice, it was really more like they didn't know what they wanted from their experience of life,
yeah.
from this lifetime. And so he started playing that role of like a life coach, not just a financial planner. And then instead, he just went full hog into, if that's a thing, whole hog into, I've been in Oklahoma my whole life, only half of it, into this thing called coaching. And he started Coach University or Coach U. And at the time, the way you got certified as a coach was through teleclasses. Like you'd call it on the telephone, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there was no screen and stuff like that. So anyway, so I met him, Thomas, a couple times and took some classes from him, and then I went to work for what's the guy's name who started situational leadership? Why am I drawing a blank on his name? He's like a famous leadership guru. Let's see if I can think of get his name. Situational leadership, because he started coaching.com, and this guy, the situational leadership guy,
That's his name.
Ken Blanchard.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like in the world of consulting and business. He was like one of the early pioneers, and so he developed this model called situational leadership that was a famous leadership model. But he started coaching.com, and I was one of the first coaches they hired. And I was probably maybe the first coach they fired too. That's a story for another day. Yeah,
I'm so interested to hear the story.
really sucked because I don't know, like I was in my like late 20s, and I was fast tracking through this world of like coaching was exploding, and I was like with the cool kids. But
Yeah.
what happened is when they flew us out to San Diego, their headquarters, they flew out their first group of coaches, 20 of us. And they had this really cool thing they wanted to show everybody. They had this high tech thing where it was still early days of the internet, but it was where you could put up on your side, and it was a program that I could put up my models and tools and show you on your computer screen. This is before Zoom. Like right now, it's so easy. I could just share screen and all that. There's a bazillion ways to do that. But in 98, this is about 99, maybe 2000 at this point, 2001. That wasn't a thing. So they flew us out there. They showed us that system because they were going to use it with their corporate clients. They were going to be out there getting coaching in corporations didn't exist at this point. So
Wow.
Ken Blanchard, though, he had the credibility to bring it into it. So they were going to the big companies, and then we were the first group of coaches, and they showed us this assessment tool that they were going to have everybody take, all the clients would take. So if you're my client over at Hewlett Packard, and they've matched us up, you would take this assessment they called the scrub down.
Oh,
Yeah. And so basically the woman who created the scrub down was a student of Thomas Leonard's. She owes her whole career, all of us do, to this Thomas Leonard guy. But here she is, she comes over there, she creates the thing called the scrub down, which is kind of like just taking Thomas Leonard's ideas and repackaging them. And but it was fine. I just raised my hand because they asked us for feedback, and I said, I think the questions are great. I think the term scrub down might be a concern for somebody that might not have wanted coaching but was told they had to take coaching. And the first thing they do is a scrub down,
Mhm.
because I think of it as like what you have prisoners do when they first get to,
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
So she pulled me aside after that, like on a break, and she said, before you criticize an idea, you should find out whose idea that is. That's what, yeah. And then soon after, like all the other coaches were being brought into projects, but I needed to go through development or something like that.
Because of that comment? Whoa.
It was a real blow because it was like she was the chief coaching officer.
Ugh.
She was having an affair with the CEO of the company. They were both married.
Whoa.
And all the coaches were talking to him. I'm like, and I'm probably the youngest one in the group,
And you're just saying stuff. Yeah, like, hey, yeah.
and I'm like, I think I'm contributing value. See,
Right.
right? And so, but that wasn't received by somebody whose goals weren't about the ideas, the
It
goal,
being the best.
yeah, or status or something.
Yeah.
It was a really
That's
powerful,
like my worst nightmare.
right?
Because I always want things to be excellent, and I am not afraid to like be a part of trying to make things better. And so I don't really worry about it enough to not do it, but I do think sometimes I'm like, it has held me back in my less confident days from sharing. But then the older I've gotten, the more because you just have to say sometimes. You just have to say if it is better, if it's the right thing. It's just like, and then if they don't get it now, maybe later they will.
It is such a valuable point, and I think you're already taking the lesson well because I don't know exactly what you're doing at OSU, but my sense is that it's your thing,
Yes.
right? That's one of the most important things is whenever you're inside someone else's thing or their
Uh-huh.
game. I don't mean the word game in a negative or disparaging way, but let's just call it that. Whenever you're inside someone else's game, then there's trouble. Now you are still inside someone else's game because
That
you're at a university,
is the
right?
issue. That is the issue that I like when even earlier at some point months ago, I was like, this is, my life, everything's falling apart. It's because of that. It's because I am so autonomous, but also cannot be like that, because my HR is governed by someone who doesn't give a shit about what I do at all. They don't care at all about what I do.
They're not aligned on your purpose, they're not aligned on your
Mission.
outcomes, and they're not
No,
aligned on your methods. That's
no.
how I think of it, right?
Yes. And so that is a major problem to me because I have this like evil out here that is like any opportunity. And because they kind of don't like me personally, because their leader got to where she was without any help. And I don't make that much less than her. And she has a master's degree and I have 0 degrees. And the president brought me on though. And so they kind of really just fast tracked me to the front of the line. And I'm a convicted felon. Like I've had a crazy life and have not done all the right things to get to where I am. It's very much like grace and opportunity and luck and working hard. It's more than what she thinks it is, but she doesn't know me. And so for me to come in, to be who in the position that I'm in, the same level position as her. So
Like
it's
threatening or yeah.
and it's just like, hey, and I don't think that way at all, but obviously that's easy for me to say. So, I try not to limit too much. And I want to understand because I'm not in that's not my life. And so that perception is going to be different and her outlook's different than mine. And so I want to have grace for that and all that. But anyways, all that to say, I'm very like independent in what I'm doing, but then also in an instant could not be because even more than HR, higher education's mission and goals are kind of different than mine.
I will tell you the soul crushing experience for me wasn't even that thing that happened at that coaching.com. It's what happened at TU a couple of years ago when I've been building up this. My interest is in teaching leadership and philanthropy combined.
Oh,
Yeah. And
Okay.
so I've been running a program for high school kids called the College Philanthropy or high school the Youth Philanthropy Initiative.
Mhm.
But I was invited by the president at TU, who he's left, but to create the College Philanthropy Initiative. So I was given 5 years to do it. 2 years in, he left. Yeah.
What happened to me?
Was that?
That's what happened to me, by the way. Go
Okay.
on.
And
Yeah.
his immediate replacement um, identified my program to be given to one of her pets. She gave my program to this other person and fired me. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm like, I was like this close to that happening to me. Like the new person isn't interested at all. Like even his, like he's told me that his family has approached him because they've heard about it in the news and they're like, wow. And he still doesn't care. Moved me under another department that does not have a single student facing program. It's operations. They moved me under operations. It has nothing to do with students or serve. They could have moved me under Dar, who's the VP of student experience. He's student
Oh,
facing, that person I'm talking about. And but he didn't because Dar cares too much about the program, is what the new president said. He cared too much of an emotional bond to it to
yeah. We
maybe,
don't, no passion, no passion here. Passion
yeah,
will never get you anywhere in life.
that's right. Well, the new guy is very blue, very analytical, very numbers, doesn't care about the humanity pieces. And anyways, if I was not so very close to all of our funders, like all the money that comes to us, like I'm very good friends with all of those people because of the years that I've spent speaking for their things before I was in HR where I am now, nothing nonprofit. I would just I'd speak at all these things to help raise money for other programs. And so anyways, that's what new president came in. The old one left, who was like all heart and soul, loved me. And yeah. And
I'm
so
really sorry. All right. So you're in danger of getting big-footed is what happened. You know, like
okay.
it's not even personal even. It's just someone people on their march to acquire turf and status. You know, all the things that happen in organizational life, which is what I study. And and one of the important things to understand is what hierarchies do to an individual, what a hierarchy does to the inner experience. That when you feel like you're being treated unfairly or abused by someone of senior status, this stuff is studied. The effects it has on people and the stress it produces in organizations, and it sucks. And like my experience was, I would call it soul shattering. I mean, it's like this is your. I have to imagine, not even very with much difficulty. This is your passion. What you're doing, like this is an extension of you. And so when other people are taking shots at it or feeling threatened by it or making decisions that impact its ability to have its reach its potential, it's got to feel that way for you. So anyway, what I'm taking from my experience is I'm relaunching College Philanthropy Initiative, and I'm doing it away from a university. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so maybe that, I don't know, are you thinking that?
That is the plan, is that what we're doing should not belong to, and I have other colleges that want us, and that are way nicer and have way more amenities and have house, like they're way nicer. But that is not enticing enough. Like we need to be our separate entity, and that we have buckets of this program at every college. So it's kind of like TANF. Are you familiar with like the TANF programs that are so it's like welfare basically. They have programs for education and employment. So they have millions of dollars and they create these little programs at colleges that are TANF programs, but all those programs have their own name, they have their own directors, they have, but the funding comes from DHS.
Yeah.
So I think that we should be modeled that way, where our funding comes from this one source, and we have that way we're operating independently at each college, but we're not owned by them, really.
So yeah, so I know this is off topic, but like you said, like if this is going to help you with your overall program, and I
Mhm.
think the more I'm hearing about what you're doing, there's so many like cool potential synergies. But just see what you think of this metaphor for what you're doing if it fits. But almost like the sorority or fraternity model where there's
Yes.
the national headquarters and then you open up a chapter. Beyond that, I don't want any other similarities with I've gone, anyway, I don't want that. But just that model where there's this national headquarters, which might be at the first university. That's usually how those are. Like the headquarters for the fraternity or sorority is usually where they launched their thing. But they're separate. And then each chapter is separate at the different universities. Now, if those chapters get run afoul of the local laws for their like Pan-Hellenic Council or whatever their inter-Greek councils, or the university laws, then they're in trouble. But it's the inside of the fraternity. If I'm like at a fraternity at OSU, it's the national headquarters that's going to come in and make sure the quality is there, make sure the officers are getting
Yes.
trained, and making sure the rush and the all of that is happening according to the up and up and all that.
Yes. And I
Okay.
actually use that analogy sometimes.
Oh, no kidding. All right. Yeah.
Yes, I do. And to describe it to people, because people understand how important that community is when they're in a college, like how life-changing that environment can, in a good way, in the most positive examples of that. That is kind of like what we are, because it's its own community of people who are with each other every single day. We're with each other way more than even so those clubs are, So I do use that example, but not as I wasn't with like funding. So I use it more as like a community, but
Yeah.
that's an excellent way to think of even just the funding model,
Well,
because
so
we aren't welfare, so
you're not, or you are.
we're not.
So we should look and see, because maybe there's a way we can support each other because I'm trying to launch the model of the college philanthropy initiative, which I can explain to you on, we're not taking up your time, but like it's basically a cohort model of going through this experience of college together, but the focus being their philanthropic project that they agree on together and develop. And it becomes a chance to apply all the experiences. It should be interdisciplinary, and it should be co-curricular, meaning you take not just a curriculum, but it's about what employers want, which is, hey, what can you do? Do you know how to take a concept from beginning to completion? Because that's what the philanthropy project is about doing. Anyway, I'll talk about it another day. But like to be able to go to universities and say, do you want to add this type of programming where it really brings this type of student, and and then just replace it with whatever your program is. But I think we both have something to offer to that are different. We're not the populations we're addressing could overlap, but I actually think generally they're different. But anyway, it's just some
Right.
thoughts.
Or it's like a program, or okay, it's kind of, but yeah, because I'm thinking about how they can be, but I also just think, I don't have a ton of experience in life, at work, whatever it is. And so I've created this thing and I have a lot of funding for this thing, but I'm not necessarily an expert. And so I'm kind of like creating it, and I don't have a board. I have no board. I have a lot of things, but with no real direction. Even my supervisor, he's over something else. And so this isn't even his strength. And so I just think about like, because we have objectives and we have projects that we do, but I'm not like an expert. So I don't necessarily know if what we're doing is the best way to do it or how we could make it better. And so maybe even just thinking about how we could potentially use you to help me build some of that stuff out.
So when I emailed you, I don't know, it was just an intuition. It was a couple weeks ago. I was like, strategic planning stuff. This is vaguely what I was kind of wondering, is if helping to create, whether it's within OSU or looking to get outside of OSU, which sounds like would be a great thing you have the opportunity to do, before they suffocate you or dismantle you or whatever could happen. I don't know if those things would happen.
We keep getting all this money though, too, that's tied to the, like we just got $150,000 today from the federal government. However, I'll say that's okay. That's okay. Because like you're saying, maybe the original spot can be OSU, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to be here forever. And to be honest, as long as it's established and running and successful, it doesn't belong to me, And so, I mean, I care so much about the mission, what we're doing, that I don't necessarily even need my job.
I
You know what I
know.
mean?
Yeah, but like that's the thing of like, what are the chances that someone else will bring to the vision what you,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
So okay, I get that you're poised to move on if need be,
Mhm.
but I don't hear that you want to, right?
No, of course not.
And so yeah, let's like, I don't know, build like, if there's a way to build something great from what you're doing, let's find that way. I think of like Teach for America that started in the college dorm room of somebody,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I want to learn more about your program. Then I need to learn more about it. Do you want our calls to get into that?
Or we could keep them separate. Like this, we could do this about the strength finder, whatever, and then we could do something separate that's more like maybe consulting or something.
Perfect.
We could do
Yeah,
like an initial, like, here's everything we're doing, and then you can kind of see which things your strengths align with.
yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that want to help. I really need to know, I need to trust, like I need to believe that they're, I just need, the trust needs to be there,
Yeah.
and so I think maybe that's where we could start, is that, where I show you everything, I kind of, we're like, these are the things, and then we work on like you get it.
I do get it.
Okay.
There's a model. I have a model for that. I,
That's like your go-to, like everything.
I don't know. I have like so I want to
Perfect.
show you this because I think you're a living example of it. And it's called the 4 pillars of credibility. Let's see if I can find it, because I'm going to draw it if I have to, but I have a really nice model of it that I could see if I could find. But the short of it goes like this. All right, I can't find it. All right, I'll draw it for you. All right, so it was explained to me that basically there are 4 pillars of a person's credibility, and um, and these 4 pillars are either their immediate sources of credibility, or they're enduring. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So the first is like your credentials. So if you have a degree, right? Like, oh, you don't have a degree, so you don't get immediate credibility.
Right.
But something about you over time makes you credible. It's not your credentials yet. So then next is the associations. And by associations, we don't mean necessarily like, oh, I'm a member of this association. It's who do you know,
That's something I have.
right?
Mhm.
Now, again, it's immediate, but let's say like, oh, you know so and so and you know so and so. That's going to give you immediate credibility, but it may not endure, because I've met people who rub shoulders with impressive people who are idiots,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So the third source of credibility is this one, and this is the one that you basically said, you just didn't use these words. You want somebody who understands the essence of what you're trying to do, where you're trying to, right? And
Yes.
that's not immediate. I kind of drew this wrong. Like, even though credentials are immediate sources of credibility, even though you don't have them, like you don't have a degree, you have other credentials, but like somebody could have a degree and not be credible in the long run.
Right.
The same with associations. But with essential understanding, you don't get it immediately. Like, there's no way you could tell from looking at somebody if they get it. But over time, it's an enduring source of credibility. It basically is, can you show that you get it? And this is what students want to see from teachers. They don't care about your PhDs after a while. They really want to know, do you get what it's like in the real world? And are you going to be able to help me get there? Which is the next thing, which is, can you offer me actionable insights?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Yes.
and really you have to have essential understanding before you can do that. Again, they're not immediate, because I don't know if you're going to give me actionable insights, but if I talk with you and engage with you, so you're going to assess me on, do I understand the essence and can I give you actionable insights? You're going to assess everybody, right? Like, this is how credibility works. is these give you immediate door openers, but they don't last. These take a while to build, but once they're there, you'll want, you'll ask this person for opinions on other matters too, or you'll be seen as a credible person. You had this with the last president, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because this new president comes in and he's probably all about the superficial
Credentials.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So, but let's look for a strategy if you want to stay at OSU. Because first of all, I don't know if you're in danger of other people trying to take your turf. Are other people trying to get your funding?
Well, so the OSU Foundation is the 501. We don't have our own 501c3. The foundation does. And everyone is really into this new sexy idea of what we're doing. And so there's just a lot of money for it. Well, the foundation gets 5% of all of that money. And so they have an interest in it, but as far as I know that academics wanted it, there's an academic department called addictions counseling. And he hated me when I started because it was originally going to belong to him maybe. And instead Brad hired me, who did not, and the other guy, apparently he's had a lot of like hard life experiences, but he pulled himself out of it, even though I guess he might be still an alcoholic. I don't know. But anyways, he got all these degrees. And so that's how he got to where he's at. And so because I've come in and I haven't earned the right to be where I am, he also has not liked me. But I think that's a long game, proving myself over time. And I have sent some emails to where he's been responsive. So I think I'm changing that. But because I am so close to our funding, they can't move. They can't get rid of me. I mean, unless there's some
scandal or something.
Something, yeah.
So, oh gosh. So, yeah, I would love to think through, because when you think about the resources it takes for you to play the long game, and and even then, it relies on other people's kind of their own personal development, their own
Mm-hmm.
level of development. And some people just have low levels of development, and they
Right.
just, everything has to be me, and my. So then we think about what resources you might need to invest to do that versus resources in maybe looking for another structure outside of OSU or something,
Right.
Or if you're going to operate internal to OSU, like how can we leverage things? Like right now, it sounds like the foundation would have some interest in your success.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe finding a way for them to help advocate for you in your own status or independence, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually have a plan where you, think through, well, what are the outcomes that would make you feel safe at
Mm-hmm.
OSU? Like, what would you need to say to the president? Hey, in order for me to keep this program here, I don't know that you would actually threaten to move it or something like that. But like, here's what I would need to see. Because right now, I ain't seeing it.
Right. Yeah.
I need to go to my funders and say, this program is respected at OSU. And you put me under buildings and crap.
Right. Yeah.
You've told the funders we don't matter. You're shooting us in the foot. I don't know what you're saying. You're like Pistol Pete, but you didn't get your gun out your holster. You dummy.
Yeah. Just like that, like specifically verbatim. Yeah.
You told him.
I'm really good at words. Yeah.
But all right. So I really like all these outcomes. All right. So let's think about separately talking through that strategy. So bringing it back to the Strengths Finder, which I think would also bolster internally, it's going to help you. It sounds like you could use it, obviously, with your students directly for your immediate purpose. It sounds, too, that you might also be able to use it as a way to build, connections around the campus. I think OSU does already have people certified in Strengths Finder, though.
Well, we're out of OSU OKC, and it's not that
Oh,
they don't care.
You're not in Stillwater?
No.
Oh, good to know.
We're in the city, Oklahoma City.
Didn't even know that. All right.
Yes. Yeah. And the departments they're not open for change or growth or development.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't see yourself using Strengths Finder that way necessarily.
No. Yeah.
So
Probably
basically, with
not.
your students, in building it into the program is something that would help
And
them.
then my team, I hired Latina, and then also we just got this federal grant. So I'm probably going to have to hire someone just to manage the grant, because federal grants are like the most complicated things, just to, like the reporting and the just everything you have to do for them.
Mhm.
So we'll grow probably, which means, more team dynamics. And so I think from that standpoint, leadership.
So this to me then even steps up the importance of alignment, because as you grow your staff, these are resources. Like once you hire somebody, of course you can find, if it doesn't work out, you find someone else, but that's really expensive. Like let's say it takes you a year, you put up with something for a year before you find out if they're the right employee, but they're not. And then, you lost that whole year or whatever. It's really expensive. So all that's to say, how are things working with Latina now?
She's amazing. She's incredible. She's like when I hired the girl before, I knew, like, I didn't feel good about her. She had a good resume, and she put her like a personality thing on her resume, and that I really liked that because it was very human,
Mm-hmm.
and I liked her degree. It was in like workforce, but as a person, she was so like calculated, even in the way she acted. And I don't like that, because it just seems like you're thinking a lot too much before you say things. And so there's no like personal connection with this human. And she was very like low on self-confidence, but tried to act like she wasn't, which I didn't like that. It's almost better if you just act like you are, if you are, to me, because then we can grow. But if you have these things, we can't grow. But if you're just who you are, that's easy for me, to deal with that. So she wasn't great. And we were really close in age. And so and because she was, I don't know, a little prideful, maybe, I don't know. I just didn't feel good about asking her for things. And I really need to feel good about asking for things. I don't care if someone's my boss. If I feel good about, like Dar, I could ask him for anything, and I just couldn't, I felt, so it wasn't helpful really to
What
have
does
her.
Star say about this? And I need to be careful because this will pull us back into what we agreed
Yeah.
to.
Oh, he's all about it. He's like, he would love to quit his job and just be with us and to do what we're doing. And he's like, because he's done all of these, he's created things, he's been all over the world, he's done all these things already. So work for him is more like an adventure than it is a salary. Like he, makes less now than he did at these other, he doesn't care as much. He's already kind of accomplished things. And so he's always like, prepare for your next, get out of here, like launch. And he's an activator. Like, so he helps people develop, he maximizes people like in a way that I've never seen anyone do.
That's amazing.
He's
All right. So it's almost like you'd want him to be like your chief development like not financial development, but people development officer or something like that.
He's great. Yeah.
Huh. What's his, does he have status at OSU? Does he have
He's
authority?
a VP, but the president does not like him.
Ah, right.
He's a lot. Like his personality is a lot. It can be very like, some people can be like, whoa. And then other people love him. Like I've gone to things like, things with him out in the world, like luncheons or something, or trainings, and he'll share. And then when we leave, these guys will come up to him and be like, hey, we should hang out. Like, like he can inspire people and influence them, or make people do not like him at all.
Oh, I want to meet this guy. All right.
I'm telling you.
I'll be
Yeah.
interested to know what his top five are. So that's what I could see happening over the next few weeks is have Latina take it if she hasn't.
She has.
Okay, cool. Your husband?
Yeah, I would love that. I would want to know.
Yeah, and Dar or anybody else that you could think
And he's
of.
already
Oh,
taken
cool.
it.
Because we can use this is how you learn the themes, Ariel. For me, honestly, the way you learn the themes is by the people closest to you.
Yeah, that's why I had her take it too. So that way we can, and that's how I learn things, is I have to interact with that thing in real life. Like just seeing it or hearing it or watching it. But then it's later, something will happen where I'm like, oh, and then I really integrate it. And so I have her stuff so that way we can work with it.
Cool. So I'm gonna message you. I'm gonna ask you to send me her.
And you were like, she took it through you, through
Oh,
your,
oh, then I should be able to get it.
right.
All right.
But if you can't, I mean, I saved it somewhere.
I should be able to get it. All right. So yeah, so because I'll want to, we'll use those as examples then in our discussions when we apply the tools and
Yes.
concepts. Most of all, we'll want to apply them to you, but having these other people with other themes, it's going to really, really be great. All right.
Well, and even like being, supervising someone, and knowing how to do that based on their strengths, I think I would like to learn more about that,
That would be good.
how to talk to them, how to develop them, because I can almost instantly see where the weaknesses are.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I wish this was different. I wish this was better. But understanding like how to say it, and then what's a me thing, what do I think is wrong, but maybe it's really not. I always want like another perspective, because I care about what I'm doing so much that I don't want to just take it and go and think that I'm right about everything. I want to make sure that it's right.
Perfect. That's good. Yeah. All right. So this is good. While we're doing this, I'm imagining what we'll be doing on the side, and I could see us putting together a POM for your program. You probably will have a lot of this already, but maybe not, and maybe I'll
Have you
prompt
heard of a theory of change?
Yes, I have. I'm
So I
not
have that
good.
for the program. That might be
Good.
helpful.
Will you? Yeah. Do you understand theory of change?
Yeah, kind
Okay.
of. I took a training for program evaluation, and so I created one
Perfect.
and so I'm thinking about as far as like official documents that I have. There's those kinds of things, but that's really it. And then I have a standards of excellence workshop in the summer. So that's probably that will come out of that.
Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, I'm really tempted to show you some other stuff, but
Right. I know. Because
yes, because it's so important, like having the clarity of the concept and your vision is the beginnings for, and I'm in the same boat and I wrestle with it. This is one of those physicians heal thyself or the cobbler's kids have no shoes. I know the difficulties because I'm inside of the same challenges, but it's way easier for me to work with you on your situation than to work on mine from inside. Does that make sense?
Well, so so the stuff that you're doing, what prompted you to start doing that? Like, where did it come from? Why'd you pick that?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. So I don't. There's a lot of influences and probably some that I don't know of for sure. But I've always been interested in introspection. Like from the minute I heard of that idea, like when I was like maybe a freshman or sophomore, I don't know, in high school or something. But like the idea of looking inward, and it's my temperament. I've always been a deep thinker and stuff like that. So I've just been gravitating toward that my whole life, whatever that was, whatever seemed to be about like helping me understand myself and helping me understand other people. So the books I would read, which I wasn't a reader, but I would read something like Walden, if you've ever heard of that book by Henry David Thoreau. It really is about those questions of like, who am I? Why am I here? And like, that's what I care about. And it's really not until the age of 52 that I think I finally happened upon a set of concepts or explanations that satisfy me philosophically, spiritually, intellectually, all of that. But what drives me is that we find what I've come to call individual environment fit. You're an individual, I'm an individual. We exist within our environments, whatever that is. And our environment is made up of all sorts of things and people and concepts, basically physical forms and conceptual names, like concepts, things that don't exist, but we're constructs, like,
Yes.
and so that's the world we live in, and so wouldn't it be nice if we could just find greater alignment between them? Because what aligns with you may not align with me, and what
Yes.
you and me may not align. You know what I mean? It's like finding those alignments is to me what we should do in this lifetime. Is to find that individual environment fit. So in order to do that, we need to know two things. Basically, we need to know the inner landscape of what is a person and who am I? Am I my body? Am I my thoughts? Am I my mind at all? Am I my persona that people think of me? What am I? What is this thing? Kind of like what that video we watched, the Lacan video. Like outside, I have this form of a human or a primate, and then my specific genetic makeup and presentation of hair and face and features, and then what I've done personally to myself to, either not look whatever certain way. But then there's that whole inner side, which in the video, it was like all those, like, it was like space, and it was like all those things, he showed it floating around. And that's what it's like inside my head, these concepts and thoughts. And so the tools I develop, everything I either work with, like StrengthsFinder, which I didn't develop, but then I've, crafted a certain way, or things that I've just developed on my own, which I've picked up from other people. They're all about helping people find that individual environment fit, because only we can do it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Right? Like there will be people who help along the way. You've encountered helpers. I've encountered helpers. And maybe that's what made us want to be helpers. But what are the ways to do it? And I'll tell you that ways that were offered to me didn't work for me. So that's why I've created these tools or found my own. And StrengthsFinder is a great tool on its own. But the way Don Clifton meant for it to be used is even better. And then I've just added on a few little pieces that I think he might have been pleased with if he got to see his work extended. But not just StrengthsFinder. Like this POM model I showed you is, for me, it's a tool that helps me orient to reality, because reality comes in a whoosh, But if you could say, no, we can say, what is our focus and why does it matter? Of all the reality going on right now, what are the things that we could focus on is this? And why does it matter? And maybe we'll find out it doesn't matter, but that's almost never the case. It's almost like, why does it matter? And shape it and helps us get more clear. From there, we get to outcomes and say, well, if this matters, then what does it look like when it's reflected in its optimal form in the world? Where do we need to get it? What do we need to do with this thing? Well, it should look like this and that and that. Now we can guide ourselves and say, all right, now we have a certain amount of resources at our disposal. This is really important. This is new stuff, Ariel, because I don't know if I've gone into with you yet, but to me, this matters, and so much for your situation. You have an array of resources, right? Some of it's money, some of it's time, some of it's talent. Some of it is not just your talent, but other people's talent, and you get to decide how to stratify your resources. That, I know that's a weird way to say it, and I didn't mean strategy. I literally meant stratify. How are you going to spread those resources among your competing concerns? Yes. That's why it's called strategy, because we are stratifying along the competing demands. Strategy is called sometimes the art of the general. You're the general. Nobody else is generaling your program for you but you, right? Mm-hmm. So how are you going to stratify your resources? You maybe never thought of it that way, but that is probably one of the most important jobs you have as the strategist for your program, is how do we do that?
And I think I need to learn how to, something I've seen in myself, is especially with Latina coming on, and I like her so much, is like, I need to not pull her in as much into some of those things, because then you're like inviting someone into your space. And then there's like boundaries that are crossed, but I'm the one that brought her there, and so it's understanding, because that's new for me to have someone that she's older than me. She is more educated than me, kind of more recently though. And she could have really great ideas, but I'll hear them and it's like, oh, it's coming from a place of less experience. And so I'm like, okay, they're not the ideas I want to go with, but I need to learn how to like put boundaries in place so that we don't, because I just like her so much and she's so great. And there are some things that'll be better, but it's like understanding as a manager how to step, because I'm by myself too. I have no one else that and so it's like your person that's right there all the time. Sometimes you'll like pull them into your space, but then some things will happen. It's just like, oh, I can't go backwards now. Have you ever like
Yeah.
had done that?
Well, your instincts are perfect on this. So this model here is one of my favorites for organizational structure. Every organization has these three roles: the strategic role, the tactical, and the operational role. Even though you're one person, you've got to perform each of these roles, and they're different, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're wearing the hat of the strategist, you think out 1 to 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, and you got to think about external relations. You got to think about how much capacity do we have and how much do things cost. A lot of these may be technical and stupid to talk about, but like you got to think about the big picture, where you are and things in the future, and what are the opportunities and what are the threats. And you got to be able to sit back and think about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else is going to do that for you. And it has to be done if you want the organization to survive. All of these roles are necessary. The operational role will go to the other end of it. It's the day-to-day stuff. It's like the classroom stuff or whatever happens where it's where the rubber meets the road. So the operational people are the one delivering to the client or supporting those that do.
So that's her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it might be you too.
Yes, but it needs to be more her.
Yes, as you develop your organization, this is what a healthy organization would look like. You have each of these roles as being satisfied, and then they're linked together through these cusps. So there might be a middle manager here, the tactical layer. See, they think out in terms of 1 to 12 months.
Okay.
They're doing projects and planning, and they're doing more of the mid-range stuff. Long range is here. Immediate near term is here, and then mid range is here.
Yeah, I'm literally doing all of these things.
Yes,
I'm reading it all and I'm like, I'm doing all of it,
exactly.
which is a really hard place to be in my brain.
Yes.
Not because I can't, but because it's just a lot. And I feel like people that I'm talking to on one level have no idea about the other things, like I'll talk to Dar and he's like that top level, but I literally, and I had to communicate with him. I'm like, I have to look at what isn't right in front of me. Like, I know we want to talk about like what could be and what should be. And I really love doing that because it's what feeds me. But like, I need to focus on these things that are right in front of me instead of just ideas.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you this. Okay. I'm going to start bringing the pieces together. This is faster than I normally go with people. All right. So remember I told you about POM, right?
Yes.
So at the center of the organization is its purpose. Let me show you this too real quick before I go too far. This is another way of showing you, here's what I showed you, POM, or I'm sorry, STO, I get my mouse, STO. This is another way of showing you the exact same thing. S, T,
Yep.
and O, right?
Makes sense.
So I'm now gonna carve out like a little slice of that. That's what I'm showing you here,
Okay.
right? At the center is the purpose of the organization. It has to be what is our focus and why does it matter?
Mm-hmm. I just think about like time when I see these slices of like how time consuming the O is as opposed to the other things.
Nice. Yeah. What's really cool. So the O here is operations, but another word I'll use for it is actions. But in the model, I call the layer STO. But what do? They do actions.
Mm-hmm. Tasks.
Yes, because those actions are the only thing that produce the outcomes we want.
Yes.
So, like when you look at the outcomes for your program, the only way they could be done is by actions being taken. And if they're done right, it's not a lot of times people will take the action, but it's not done well enough to get the outcome. So
That is what I don't want.
right? So a very important principle for what I talk about is right action at the right level. It's both. This actually is the definition, Don Clifton's definition of a strength in StrengthsFinder. His definition was an activity that you perform consistently and near perfectly. That's the definition of a strength.
So it can't be too much. Like I can't be too input oriented though.
All right, this will throw for a loop.
Okay.
Let me come back to that question.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, so in order to get from your purpose to your outcomes, you need to do, if you remember, POM, what was the M?
Methods.
Exactly. Methods are divided into strategies, tactics, and actions or operations. Methods, um, are hierarchical. Let me show you another way to draw the same diagram. This is another look. So I have a purpose, and then I have a strategy. Usually, I'll have maybe 4 to 6 main strategies. And then each strategy gets broken down into tactics, and each tactic gets broken down into actions. So you can see why you need a strategic layer to determine, well, because the strategy is the first decision you make in your tactical layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I got a diagram for this.
Yes. And it's like a big one as opposed to a lot of them. So you're not like scope out of your scope and going a million different directions.
Exactly. So let's say this is us, we're over here, and we want to get to our outcome, which is this. That's where we want to get. So we can do strategy 1, which is go through the giant jungle cat jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Or we could go through the snake evergreen forest. Or we could take the river. So I'm saying the decision to take the river is a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could have spent my resources to do this route, or I could have spent my resources to do this route, but I'm going to spend my resources to go this route. That's what a strategy is. It's this, you've got your resources, and you need to decide how you're going to stratify them or spend them. Right? How much are you going to put into programming? How much are we going to put into recruitment? How much am I going to put into political stuff? How much am I going to put into fundraising? Right? You have to stratify your resources. So you can't answer those questions unless you know your outcomes. So that's why outcomes matter. And you can't know your outcomes until you know your purpose, which is to get down the river, which is to get, whatever. All right. So once we decide to take the river, that's not going to get us down the river. Strategies are broad, but they're not effective. We need to break this strategy down into tactics. So our main tactic for how we're going to get down the river is we're going to use a boat. We're not going to take a submarine. We're not going to body surf. All right. Now, the tactic of using a boat still needs to be broken down into the action step. We need to find one or build one. We need to get in. We need to navigate downriver. We need to not sink.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a stupid kind of like general example of strategies, tactics, and then action steps. Or if I can pull this up real quick.
Did you draw this?
I had my graphic designer draw that.
Okay.
I have no artistic skills.
That's what I was wondering.
Right. So I want to show you one of my clients right now is a hospital. And so we've actually used this as their strategic plan for mapping strategy. This is going to be it's incomplete, but let me just show you. And it's a lot at one time, but you'll see purpose.
Okay.
Here, purpose. All right, better. Nope, still can't see it.
I'm gonna go take you into my
All right.
thing so we can stand up because I'm dying.
Okay. Do you need a break or?
No, I just don't want to sit anymore.
Perfect.
So we're going to my counter.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my
It's like a field trip.
It is a field trip. Yes.
Good. All right, you good?
Yep.
So so the purpose for the hospital is they want to lead with quality, and why does it matter? See, they're a small hospital in Houston, so they can't compete in a lot of other ways, but the reason they're going to lead with quality is they can absolutely control quality, and quality is a key indicator. So then we get into the outcomes, and generally speaking, they want to be the place where physicians choose to practice, patients want to receive care, and employees want to work. And then you can see they have kind of like smaller measures underneath there. which is great. I love seeing outcomes this way. I love seeing like a very broadly worded outcome, but then really making it clear and specific with some measurables, some milestones, right? It tells you you're making progress towards your outcomes. So then how are they going to spend their resources? Well, they decided that their main strategies would be quality, financial management, physician engagement, and business development. And I asked them, I said, can you produce these outcomes with these strategies alone? And I challenged them because I said, if you don't really build a great employee experience or do something to really develop your employees, none of these other gears will turn. And they agreed. So that became their number one strategy, was employee experience.
So are these ranked?
What's that?
Are they ranked, or are they?
Yeah, we did end up ranking them, but so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But we also did something else that's really key. I'm going to blow it up here so you can see. I asked them. I said, are these the factors? These 5 things, if we get them into the right shape, if they're at the right level of whatever, they're in the right condition, will that produce the outcomes you want? And they said yes, if those are in the right condition. So what I want to show you now is how we determine that. It's just, I asked them, I said, okay, currently, where's your employee experience on a scale of 0 to 10? And then they said, right now it's about a 5. I said, all right, is a 5 going to get you those outcomes you want? And they said, no, but an 8 would. So the tactics come next. That's what these are. This is a strategy, but these dark blue ones are the tactics. So I said, what gears, if you turn them, would move your employee experience strategy from a 5 to an 8, or toward an 8? And notice they didn't say 10, or they did actually at first, but I'm like, no, getting things to a 10, it's cost prohibitive. If we're going to be really honest about what a 10 is, for you to get it there, you're not going to want to put your resources. Because to move to a 5 to a 6 will take some resources, but not as much as probably moving from a 6 to a 7. It gets more expensive each time you move, here.
Yeah.
So this is a very core principle of mine that I stole from Carl Jung, the psychologist. I basically say that this is it's at the core of everything, is progression, not perfection. In fact, the philosophy of progression helped me eliminate my perfectionisms, which I never even really knew I had. And the idea, I kind of say it in this pithy way, Ariel. I say, perfection is never possible, but progression is always possible. Does that make sense?
Totally.
There's always something we could go from a 5 to a 5.1, from a 5.2, We can always do something to get it closer to a 6. So what I'm showing you is POM to the next level, where it actually becomes a strategic plan, and you can map it down to the action level and really lay out like a checklist of these are the things, and how that's how you'll produce your outcomes. Everything else, every other approach I've seen for strategic planning is either way too cumbersome, no one ever uses it, or way too superficial, no one ever uses it.
Well, I mean, and that's really why. That's one of the reasons I haven't done it. And then also, I don't know. That's probably why I haven't done it. And you got to understand too, I don't have like stakeholders that are that like even my biggest funder, like I can do anything and she's the Secretary of Public Safety. Like she doesn't have time to be involved. She just trusts me. And so I don't have like a board. I don't have other people that would be involved in the plan. And so but I would love to have one.
Yeah, having one, and then having it in this visual way could be really engaging, because now you can connect it to what I was showing you with the STO model, because now you could say to Latina, like, hey, you're here, You're joining this team because you're the one who makes the rubber meets the road.
Mhm.
The only thing that produces an outcome is an action. Now, I'm going
Mhm.
to do something fun for me. I don't know what you'll think, but I make a distinction between action and motion. They're not the
Okay.
same. They're not the same. They look the same because they both use resources. They both look like movement. But if you're spending resources in a way that's not tied to a tactic, and a tactic that's tied to a strategy, and a strategy that's gonna, unless you got that going, then you've got this free floater motion happening.
Uh-huh. That's what I don't want. And that's what I would like to weed out, but and because we've had so much resource now, we've been able to throw a lot of stuff at the wall, whether that be these trainings or whatever. And I have done I've tried to collect a lot of data like feedback and surveys to kind of see what is getting people, moving or what's affecting them and things like that. And sometimes it's not the training. Maybe it's the way that we spread the training out over 16 weeks and it really needs to be condensed here. And so, but I don't want the motion, and not because I don't have the resources. I just really want it to be effective. Like I want it to be the most effective thing for the students.
Right? Yeah, I totally want to go through this process with you of like, what is your program about? Why does it matter? Let's list all the reasons. Then what are and you can do this yourself actually. If you want to, I don't know, do you work well this way? Like if I give you like like I won't give you an assignment. I don't have that power. Like you get to veto any assignments. But are you good? How do you work? What's a good way to
Well,
work with you that way to
I
advance?
think that I've already done some work as far as, are you familiar with Six Sigma?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay,
I mean, I'm not a black belt or a what, even a belt of anything.
sure. Okay, so I had a consultant come in and we did like a project for 2 weeks. And so we've really broken down a lot of the things that we do and why we do them and what's critical to quality as far as having these outcomes. And so I've done, and some of those data points have changed, and so it's not perfect because it's from last summer. But I have a lot of stuff of like, this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is how we're going to do it. But what's the homework?
Oh, yeah. So basically, just those two things,
Okay.
what is our focus and why does it matter? And just list all the things like you talked about the individualization and that, the students who come to you, they've missed out on a significant part of the developmental experiences of life that they need to be what? So that gets to your outcomes. What do you want for your students? What do you want for your program? What do you want for your stakeholders? A way I think of it, and to me, this is like the central thing for StrengthsFinder, and it's the central thing for all of us humans. If you think about it, everything about us comes down to thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
The cognitive triangle, it's called thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This is my new fascination. This isn't my slide. I found it, and I really like it. But it really explains it. Thoughts. This is what's happening inside of us, and all social science respects this. In fact, the definition of a talent in StrengthsFinder, it is simply this. Gallup defines the 34 themes. They're not strengths, by the way. So
Right.
the themes are patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that can be productively applied. I know that doesn't look like productively because I totally screwed it up. But themes are patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that can be productively applied. Input is a pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you've developed over time. They're patterns of how you think about things. Is this useful? How would I use it? Under what circumstances? Who do I know that could use it? With your individualization, that's probably what you think of a lot. Who do I know that could benefit from this?
Mm-hmm.
Individualization is a pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The feelings are, if it's like, if I can't really get to know a person, then I feel uncommitted, maybe,
Mhm.
or something. At least that's how I feel, until I've experienced a person like Dar. He's just a concept to me, like,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
But like, I trust you and your views, especially knowing you're an individualizer. But like, until I actually
Yeah.
experience, right? Yeah.
Mhm. They're
So
not a real person to me. And really, I can't tell you how many times almost a day someone I'll have an experience and I'll be like, oh, this person is, XYZ, or this thing is XYZ. And whoever's by me said, I told you that. And I'm like, that didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to me because it wasn't, it happens to me almost every day.
right.
Like, well, it wasn't relevant to my, like, what was, anyway. So it happens to me constantly.
So that's a perfect example of individualization is a way you've learned to navigate life and relationships.
Mhm.
Because when you think about it, life, the individual and the environment thing that I talk about, life is placing demands on you. Let's look at it from your student's point of view, right? Life places demands on them. Like demands on things they have to get done, demands on relationships, demands on learning how to influence and get your needs met. Demands such as how do I process all this information and all these choices, right?
Mhm.
Life places these demands on us, and the way I think of strength is it's our ability to resist or meet or overcome the demands. I'm thinking of like a military press, right?
Mhm.
The weight is the demand, and the strength is the ability to meet it, right?
Yes.
And so, strength in life is our ability to meet the demands placed on us. And what Don Clifton was saying, and it's really a subtle point, but it's all of it, is we meet the demands of life by performing activities.
Mhm.
If we perform the right activities and we perform them at the right level, we will meet the demands life places on us. You feel demands of being the director of this program and being its guardian and all of that, right? So we've finding ways to help you meet those demands is what success will look like.
Yes.
And yeah, that's what I love about StrengthsFinder. And if we can help your students understand that, if they can identify the right activities and learn how to perform them at the right level, they can thrive. They can move toward what they want in life. That's basically how you did it, even if you didn't have those words for it,
Mhm.
right? It's knowing what activities and performing them at the right level. How to build the right relationships is an activity. How to manage my time and my tasks is one of those activities. How do I make choices and all that. So we're at like 2 hours have gone by. Can you believe it?
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's
Mhm.
absolutely crazy. I mean, in a way, I feel bad, like because like I have so many things about StrengthsFinder, like and it's still there. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
But like I just hope you're not mad that we didn't get into it yet.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other things, I was like asking the questions, so I'm glad that we can divert. I like a good, like, let's think about this thing, or let's talk about this thing.
Adaptability is my number 6.
I
So
love it.
we should have we done your 34 yet? We don't need to
I
yet.
have it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Then I should have it.
you should have it.
I'll be able to
Yeah,
pull it. All right. So let's do this. I don't know if you have to jet or not. I
I
don't.
do.
Okay. So do we need to schedule a next time, and should we do it over
Yes.
email?
Yes.
All
That
right. I'll
sounds
let you jet.
okay.
I'll send you the link to the video. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.